Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Strong Disciples podcast, where we teach you and talk about the heart and how of discipleship. And we're in for a great day today. We are filming episode 7. Can you believe it, guys? Episode 7.
Wow.
It's happening.
Yes.
And look, we all each have a mic.
We've got 3 mics.
It's amazing.
Game changer. Absolute
Very
game
good.
changer.
Yep.
What's it like having your own mic, Pastor Hannah?
It's nice.
Yep.
good.
Yep. It's
Yeah,
good.
it's
It's good.
good.
And Pastor Sam, feeling good?
Yeah, feeling good. I've
Feeling
good.
Feeling good?
I've done a lot. I'm doing a lot. Yet to
Come
do
on.
a lot.
Wow.
It's all happening.
It's all happening. It's
today.
all happening. We're in for a great
It's
episode.
good to be here.
Hey, it's been a while since we've filmed, since we dropped an episode, and so it's great to be back. But a lot has happened, and we're going to talk about some things today. We're going to talk about courageous conversations, which I'm really excited for.
Yes.
But before we get into that, big question today: what are you guys having for dinner?
What are we having for dinner?
Okay, it's a bit of a. We've been discussing this.
Okay. So it's a
It's
bit
either
of
a
an open conversation.
pot chicken curry vibe thing.
Wow.
happening,
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Or steak, but we haven't had great luck with the steak from Audi lately.
We need to
Audi-
source
yes.
a new steak supplier.
We're the same, actually.
Yeah.
Not that we're going to spend too much time on this, but yeah,
Audi
we're the same.
do good steak.
Usually.
As far as
Yeah.
supermarkets go.
I
but
get
probably
that.
the last 3 or 4 times it's tasted quite gamey.
Yeah,
Yep.
gamey. There you go. It's a good way to put it.
It's like this is a dead animal. Like this tastes like a dead animal.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if you're going to cook a steak, you got to do it medium rare.
Medium rare all the way. For
You
sure.
got to know that thing was alive at some point.
Yeah.
You don't want to cook it too far through.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
I mean, we've just lost our whole vegan audience, but
Yeah.
I don't
Sorry,
think
vegans.
it was a massive audience, to be
But
honest.
the truth is,
But, yeah.
the Lord didn't ask for salad on the altar.
Come on.
He asked for meat.
What
So
do you,
true.
what are you
Worthy
having
is the
for
lamb.
dinner?
as they say.
I don't know. We're actually going over to some of the leaders in our church's home tonight, and we have no idea what we're eating. But I'm excited. I'm excited. It's going to be good. It's going to be so good. But are you guys pumped to be back on the couch, ready to film this episode today?
We're ready.
So
I'm
good.
excited.
We're talking about courageous conversations
Yes.
that transform the heart. Because this season for SDS, this podcast, we have been talking all about the heart. And so we're going to keep that theme going. And today we thought it'd be awesome to talk about courageous conversations. So I want to start off by kind of framing it and kind of asking the question, when we're talking about courageous conversations, what are they?
Well, I mean, to put it simply, I guess it's anything that is going to take some courage to say. And most transformative conversations in my life, whether it's been from people who've been speaking into my life or in the lives of those that I've led, and I'm sure you could speak to this as well, have been conversations that have taken courage to have.
Yeah,
Because
yep.
a change conversation, a conversation that produces change in someone's life, more often than not, is going to take some courage to have, because
Yeah.
you're going to have to say some things sometimes that people don't want to hear but need to hear.
Yeah, so
and it's
true.
often the stuff we don't want to hear but we need to hear that actually changes us and
Yeah.
transforms us. So when I think about having a courageous conversation, they're the conversations I think of. And
Yeah.
I think it never really changes. You know, we've been in ministry for a long time now, and I think that although my conviction about courageous conversations has gotten stronger and stronger, I don't necessarily wake up in the morning and go, you know what, I can't wait to have a hard conversation with
Yeah, yeah,
someone.
yeah.
It's never something you want to do, but I
Yeah.
think we're very convicted about it because we know that if we really love people, we're going to have those conversations
so
with them.
true.
Like if we
Yeah.
really love people, we're going to tell them things sometimes they don't want to hear but
Yeah.
need to hear.
Yeah.
Like I always think of that illustration of, you know, if you're standing on a train track, you know, someone's standing on a train track and there's a train coming towards them and it's about to just total them.
Yeah.
Who loves them more? The guy who says, hey, what you're doing on that train track's amazing. You're so beautiful. It's special. You should keep standing there. Or the guy who says, hey, there's a train coming and if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
Which one loves you more? It's the guy who tells you, hey, the train's coming.
Exactly
And so
right.
I think a lot of the time we want people to like us more than we want to love them. And I think that can get in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't know, in my experience, you can't be a people leader and a people pleaser
So true.
at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
You've got to choose which one you want to be. And I think if we're really about people, if we really love people, we're going to be willing to have those conversations.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I think sometimes, if we're honest, we actually can love ourselves more than the people we're leading.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's what happens when we choose to withhold a conversation that's going to help them because
Yeah.
we want them to like us.
Wow.
We can become narcissistic. So it's like, I want you to like me more than I love you. And if we're in that kind of position and that kind of situation with people, then we're actually more in love with ourselves than the person.
Wow.
But if I love you
Come on.
and I love your future and I love everything that I believe you can become, I'm actually going to be willing to have some courageous conversations with you.
Yeah.
And that's going to guide my conviction on speaking things that you might not want to hear right now, but you need to hear because I love you. You know,
Yeah.
if my kid, if Leo, my little ranger, my little redhead,
Come on.
if he's going up to a hot stove and he's going to put his hand on that stove, and I say, you know, I don't want to tell him something he doesn't want to need to hear, that wouldn't be loving. That would be dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But if I love him, I'm going to say, don't do that. Don't go there. Don't touch that. Because there is a conviction in me, even though he might not like it in that moment, to protect him from something that's going to harm him in the
Yeah.
future
Yep.
and maybe cause him to have to carry a scar he doesn't have to carry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think when you're discipling people and you have that heart, it's not that we want to shield people from every bad thing in life, because
Yep.
I think people got to go through stuff and they've got to have hard seasons. Sometimes it's got to make their choices and do their things. But if I can prevent you from getting unnecessary scars,
Yeah.
unnecessary wounds, by saying some things, by having some courageous conversations with you that are going to help you, then I got to do that if I actually really love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so it's such a deep thing when it comes to discipleship, is having these courageous conversations and understanding that discipleship just isn't time,
Yeah.
or isn't just this attitude that we have towards someone, but it is the deep conversations that we've got to have. And I love that you're saying, Pastor Sam, that it's these conversations that we need to have.
Yeah.
That as disciplers, often, in fact, most of the time, we don't want to have them.
That's it.
But we know
Yep.
they need to happen.
That's
and
it.
so I think it's exciting that we're talking about this today, because I think the culture that we're in at the moment very much is about tolerating, is very much about ignoring, is very
Yeah.
much about, I need people to like me, and
Yeah.
if people like me, then they'll follow me. But the reality is it's simply not true. Is
Yeah.
that, like
Yeah.
you said, you can either be a people pleaser or a people leader, but you
Yep.
can't be both. And so
Yep.
I'm excited for, as we jump into today, these courageous conversations. And
Yep.
I'm excited to hear stories about even these conversations that maybe you guys have had or have given. But now that we know what they are, I'd love to ask you guys, like, why is it important that we have them? And so you touched on them a little bit, Pastor Sam, just then, but I'd love for us to dive deeper, like the why behind
Why don't you
these
speak into this?
courageous
Yeah.
conversations. Yeah.
Yep.
So why it's important to have
Yeah,
them?
yeah, yeah.
I think it's important because that is what brings transformation. I
So
think
true.
obviously love and like acceptance of people and all of that, like that is also important. But I think when you're truly discipling somebody, it's so important because that is what is going to make them more like Jesus. And I think
Yeah, so
that's
true.
what discipleship is about, whether it's for us or for the people that we're leading or whatever. Like we all know, like we're constantly, like our life should reflect Jesus more and more as we
Yeah.
get older.
Yep.
And we never make it, like we never make it to perfection, but that we should constantly be learning and growing and disciplining our flesh and all of those things. And so I think it's just that awareness of like no one that you're going to disciple is ever going to make it. So it should be a constant thing. Like it should be a
Yep.
constant
Yeah.
topic of conversation of what you see and what you want to challenge people in. And and I think you hit the nail on the head when you were saying, like, if you truly love people, that you have those conversations. And I think
Yeah.
I think for me, obviously, I think it's obvious. You know, like none of us are like, yes, like I can't wait to just like rip into them. Not that it's
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
ripping into them.
Yeah.
Definitely some conversations get more heated than others, depending on people's temperament and like how well they receive certain correction or challenge or whatever. But that it's a place where I think you also as a discipler have to come to that place of like, am I actually mature enough and do I actually love them enough to put myself into that uncomfortable situation where I'm going to address things that may taint their view of me.
Yeah.
Or not even taint their view of me, but do you mean like there's that, I guess there's the opportunity for offense. There's an opportunity for them to disagree and, you know, all of those things. And I think it was a couple of years ago, obviously I've been doing ministry for a long time and having difficult conversations, and I think my anxiety level was higher in the earlier years, but it was a couple of years ago, and I remember someone that I was discipling really closely, and I remember having this revelation. Like I'd heard this advice been given before, like, you know, if you love them, you tell them the truth, but I had never really had that revelation before. And I remember there was something that was needed to be addressed, and I knew it needed to be addressed for like 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
And I knew that it was important, but I was like, this is culturally appropriate and this is kind of personal. And so I'm just, I remember saying to Sam, I'm like, you can have that conversation. But I remember like having this like revelation that I could see that this issue that I had just not brought up to her was actually withholding God's best for her, withholding her taking her next steps, withholding her being promoted in ministry, just because there was this little thing that I have just didn't have the courage to confront her on. And I remember like so desperately wanting to see her keep going, like, and growing and doors open. But I was like, I am actually selfish because I'm more concerned about our relationship and how she feels about me.
Wow.
Then it's like I have the keys to her progressing and growing, but I'm so concerned about myself that I'm not actually like using the keys to unlock her. And I remember God, like the Holy Spirit saying to me, he was like, you say that you love her, but they're just words.
Wow.
Like you actually are not demonstrating your love for her, that you would like lay your life down or like your reputation or like how you think she might perceive you potentially. For her freedom.
Yeah, wow.
He was like, you say you love her, but do you really love her? Because you're you don't want to do this. Yeah. And I avoided it for so long. Anyway, so I remember just like being like, oh wow, yeah, like if I really do love her, I'll actually talk to her about this. And I was so scared. Yeah. I literally like brought up with her, and she was like, yeah, I've never seen that point of view before. And I was like, you pray about it and like submit it to God, and like you're hearing what I'm saying, but I want this to come from a revelation from the Holy Spirit, literally like within like an hour. The issue that I had seen had been resolved. Wow. And I was like, oh my gosh, that took like 3 to 6 months. I could have just like spoken to her about it.
That's crazy.
But that was like the moment where I was like, wow. And now I see it through that lens now. It's just like, wow, that person might hate me for like a few weeks, or they might take it wrong. And I can literally say this to them in the conversation. It's like, I love you so much. And I know that this might be confronting, but if I love you, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And this is what I see. This is what I see as dysfunctional. That attitude is not okay. Not because I'm mad at you. I'm not mad at you, but I can see that this pattern in your life is actually not healthy, or it's dysfunctional. And I actually love you enough to not care about myself so much and be so consumed with my reputation or your perception of me that I would actually withhold the keys to your freedom or withhold the keys to your opportunities opening because I have been too scared to address these things with you. And I think that was the moment where I was like, okay. And now I see that through the lens now of like, okay, I can have these conversations because I'm actually selfish if I don't. I'm actually so concerned about myself.
That's brilliant. I think it's so true that so often we think, you know, if I leave something long enough, it's going to resolve. And it's one of the rookie mistakes of discipleship is thinking, if I just kick the can down the road, if I just delay this, it's going to get better. And this is what I've found. I'm sure you can speak to this too, but nothing delayed gets better.
No.
Nothing you
Yep.
leave and don't tend to gets better.
Yep.
Like imagine going outside and you're like, you know what? If I just leave my lawn, it's going to get better. If I leave my garden, it's going to get better. It just doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't tend towards health. It tends towards decay.
Yep.
And that's the same with any kind of issue that the Lord highlights to you of those you're discipling. If you leave it and you just kick it down the road, it just gets worse, not better. And I think a lot of the time, you know, when I think about your words, Hannah, I think, you know, and you probably agree, PJ, and a bunch of our staff and leaders would agree, your words hold weight.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why your words hold weight, or anyone's words hold weight, is because there's a respect that comes with those words.
Yeah.
So I find people pleasers are well liked, but not well respected.
Yeah.
And so their words don't have weight.
That's right.
Because if there's only flattery and compliments and encouragement, then there's no weight to the word.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's like what adds weight to the words of a leader is that they mean what they say.
Yep.
So if I'm saying the hard thing when there needs to be correction, that also means my encouragement means something.
Yes. Yeah.
But if it's only ever encouragement, if it's only ever the nice thing, then your words, they're kind of wafer thin. They hold this, there's no weight to them, you know, and you know it. You know, when you hear a person speak who's respected, it's like they don't even have to say a lot.
Yeah.
But what they say, there's a weight to that word. There's a weight to that sentence. It's not even about being an extrovert or an introvert. It's about the weight of the word. You can say few words with great weight, and few words with great weight come from those words coming from that place of truth and respect. And I think respected leaders are respected because they're willing to go there.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're actually willing to have those chats. It reminds me of Proverbs. I'll read this. Proverbs 27. It says, better is open rebuke than hidden love.
Wow.
Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but profuse are the kisses of an enemy.
Wow.
So someone who only kisses you, right, and the kiss there is meant to be, it's a positive connotation, is not a friend of your destiny. They're an enemy of your destiny.
Wow.
Someone who only does the nice thing, says the nice thing, they're not actually your friend. They're an enemy to your destiny.
Yeah.
But faithful are the rebukes of a friend.
Yeah,
So
crazy.
if you're a friend to my future, if you're a friend to my formation in God, if you're a friend to everything the Lord has for me, there's going to be lovingly rebuke.
Yeah.
There's going to lovingly be correction.
Yes.
And that's actually how you discern between an authentic friend and just a good time friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A fair weather friend and a stormy weather friend is whether those people have the ability to speak the word in love. You know what I mean? And Ephesians 4:15 says that. It says that we have to speak the truth in love.
Yeah.
That truth and love go hand in hand.
That's right.
And that's news to to the gentle parenting generation.
Yeah.
You know, we were laughing the other day. We heard this mum was like, they don't believe in saying no to their kid. So instead of saying no, they say, not available. You know,
my God.
And I remember saying to Hannah, I'm like, what happens when that kid grows up and someone says no to them? It's not going to work.
Nope.
And you can't gentle parent children. My opinion, you gotta find the balance there. But particularly when it comes to life and ministry and people, we can't be gentle spiritual parents either, in the sense of we've actually got to speak the truth in love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's important that there's both truth and love. Speak the truth in love. Okay. So truth without love, that's legalism. Right? That's a legalistic environment. It's all truth and no love. It's legalism.
Yeah.
Love without truth, that's liberalism. Okay? That's just like anything goes, nothing matters. But truth and love, that's wisdom.
Yeah.
Jesus, if you look at Jesus, he is described as both what? The lion and the lamb.
That's right. Yeah.
The truth and the love.
Yeah.
The tough and the tender. And so as a leader, it's about knowing as well, when do I need to be the lion
Yeah.
and when do I need to be the lamb?
Yeah.
Because there's times where I want to be the lion, but they don't need the lion right now. They need the lamb.
Yeah, wow.
There's times where I want to be the lamb because it'd be so much easier than being strong right now and saying what needs to be said, but I actually need to be the lion.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where you got to know as a leader when to be what.
Yeah,
You
so
got to
good,
know to
so good.
discern when to be what. It's like, man, someone might be acting out because there's a crisis going on in their life. And everything's melting down and their world's falling apart. And if you come in as the lion on some behavior that's not right, without taking that into context, you're gonna have the wrong application of truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Because what they need when their world's falling apart is the lamb.
Yeah.
But what do they need when they're getting arrogant? What do
Yeah.
they need when life's actually good, but there is a pride rising up and there's an arrogance? They need strength.
Yeah.
They don't need the lamb.
Yeah.
They need the lion.
Yeah, so
And
good.
so you've got to know as a leader, discern. And this is why it's like we've got to know what's going on in the lives of people we're leading, because that helps us to discern whether they need the lamb from me or the lion from me, the truth from me or the love from me. You know what I mean? And I think we all tend towards one of those in our natural temperament. You know, some people are born more lion. They just love confrontation. I am a little bit more like that. I tend to be more, like we had a crazy neighbor coming to our North location the other day and was like coming at some of our, the first thing I do is I just want to I go right up. I naturally lean more lion.
Yes.
I'll just run towards it.
Yeah.
Some people are more lamb. They're born more lamb. And so they're naturally more tender, pastoral.
Yep.
So you've got to know which one you are and then understand that being Christ-like is having both of those things happening.
Yeah, so
it's
good.
also understanding not to judge someone else who has more of that aspect of Christ than you.
Yes.
So if you're a lamb person, you might judge the one who leans more lion and go, that's not Christ-like. But actually, the lion is as much Christ-like as the lamb.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're more of a lion, you might judge the person who's more of a lamb and go, well, they're just so weak and tender and mushy and they never speak. But what we want to do is understand that both of these things are different aspects to the nature of Christ, and we have to develop as disciples and leaders whichever one of those for us is the weaker part.
Yeah.
Knowing that holistic discipleship and holistic leadership is not one or the other.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah.
And we can lean more towards one or the other. So, if you lean towards truth more than love, you are at risk of creating a legalistic environment.
Yeah.
Because truth without love is legalism.
Yeah.
So that's going to be your risk if you have that lion temperament. But if you have the lamb temperament, you run the risk of creating a liberalism environment where it's all love and no truth and nothing ever gets addressed and everyone feels good and happy, but no one's actually living like Christ.
Yeah, exactly right.
There's always sin running rampant and tensions everywhere that no one wants to resolve.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand, I think, that wisdom is truth in love. It's a lion and the lamb. And I think it's important to know yourself well enough, and great exercise even, I think, to ask those who know you well, which do I lean to?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Am I like the truth without love guy, or am I the love without truth guy? Am I more lion or am I lamb? Can you help me develop that part of me? Because one of the things I'm convicted about, and we've had these chats all the time, even with our pastors and team and stuff like that, is I want to help round out our leaders and our pastors to make sure that they're fully formed in Christ and representing both of those well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing that you can also be deployed in the area of strength.
Yes, that's right.
So it's like, if I know there's a really delicate situation going on, I'm probably not going to send the leader in there who leads more lion. I'm going to go, hey, that's when someone who has that lamb temperament should go in.
Yeah.
And put that foot, because they're going to need that tenderness and that care.
Yeah.
But it's like, if there's a crazy person walking in off the street saying, I'm a prophet to the nations and I've come to take your microphone, I'm probably not going to send the lamb to go and fix that. I'm going to send the lion.
That's it. Send all of them.
Because send them all. For Narnia, just all
Aslan.
all that for Aslan. Because different temperaments have different strengths. And it's not that we value one and not the other.
Yeah.
We got to know where to deploy them and
Yeah.
also know where to grow in those areas too.
That's so good. So good. I love one thing that you said at the start there, PS, was you were saying that delay will lead to decay.
Yep.
And you're like, so often as
Well, I didn't actually say it like that. You said it a lot better than me.
Sorry, I've been thinking
that-
about it for
that's
so
actually
long. I'm just
amazing.
like, I got to get it out there because I'm just like,
The rhyming,
I don't
the
know.
alliteration.
Yeah, Chat GPT.
You were born to preach.
Quickly with that one. But I
That's very
really
good.
love how you mentioned that because I think even as I sit here,
Yep.
I'm thinking of courageous conversations that I'm needing to have
Yep.
that maybe I've delayed
Yep.
or have in that box of maybe later or, kicking the can down the road of like, hopefully it resolves by itself.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking there's going to be a lot of listeners and viewers
Yep.
who are probably in a similar boat that are like, flip, I've been delaying some of these courageous conversations. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of flip it a little bit now
Yep.
and go a bit more practical.
Yep.
And ask you guys, how do you have these courageous conversations? I love, Pastor Hannah, how you mentioned that, God was speaking to you about this for 3 to 6 months, and then you had almost a quick conversation. It wasn't this, hey, let me take you out to dinner. We're going to spend 3 hours together and I'm going to just chuck it in at the end there and hope that something happens. Like, it wasn't like that. It was like there was a conversation and it led to, there was a solution that happened from that. But then there are other moments where you're like, there's deeper chats that need to happen and there's longer chats and longer moments and different dynamics, all that stuff. But I say all that to simply ask you guys, how do you practically have these conversations? For the leader that's listening now, for the discipler that's like listening right now going, man, I've got to have these conversations, but I don't know the first step on how to have them. What would you say and how would you speak into something like that?
Can I start with Bible? I mean, you jump into the practical on this. The first confrontational conversation, corrective conversation to ever happen was between God and Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
And how God opened that conversation is a lesson, I think,
So true.
in correction. Because what did he do? He asked a question.
Yeah, that's right.
He said, "Where are you?"
Yeah.
And it's not because he didn't know where they are. God sees everything. He knows everything. But it's a great illustration on what it means to correct someone. Because a lot of the time what we want to do is we see a behavior and we run in with an assumption, not a question.
Wow.
We assume why they're behaving that way.
Yep.
We've decided why it is.
Yeah.
But when you ask a question, you give the person the opportunity to give context before you give correction.
Yeah, so good.
And what often happens is when you get more context, it changes how you have that correction conversation.
Yep.
So in Adam and Eve's case, it was like, we did the wrong thing and we hid and we were naked, so we were afraid. And often I think when it comes to these kind of chats, as soon as you ask a question, hey, I noticed this behavior. What was going on when you did that?
Yeah.
What was happening in your mind?
Yeah.
Tell me about what's happening. And you hear the bigger picture, and now I've got more context
Yes.
to be able to bring that correction and speak to it.
Yeah.
And I would say almost all the time when I ask a question like that and follow in the example of that corrective conversation that God had with Adam and Eve, you find out vital information
So true.
that informs and guides and makes the correction more accurate,
Yeah.
more precise, and less based on assumption.
Yeah.
Because assumption is the enemy of good correction.
Yeah.
If you just assume a motive, assume a reason, but never ask the question, I think that's where you start missing out.
Yeah.
But that's a good biblical framework, I
Yeah.
think, to
Yeah.
go lead with a
I
question
love that. I love
before
that.
you get and bring your own assumptions and
Yes.
ideas about what that looks like and
Yeah.
why. But
Yeah.
start off with a question. That's
Brilliant.
how God did it. I think that's how we should do it. And then
Yeah.
it guides the rest of
Love
the
that.
conversation. But
Love
practically, like how we actually walk this out.
Yeah, I think it does change from time to time. And I think, again, I mean, you were saying about how, if someone's going through something really deep, maybe they need the lamb.
Yeah.
If it's just like an arrogance thing, maybe they need the lion. I think, though, sometimes we back off on having we kick the can down the road because we're like, oh, like this person is going through a really hard time. But I don't think that is also a reason to not bring challenge, but
Yes.
but with the awareness of what is going on.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to not ever shy away from those conversations, because as well, another important reason to have these conversations is it builds, I don't know if this is the right word, but it like builds rapport between you and that person.
Yeah.
Because it's like either you are highlighting something that you're noticing and it brings them to the depths of despair, or like, do you know what I mean? Like it brings them to a place like, wow, this is like from this root issue from when I was a child, it's attached to trauma and whatever. But they know that you're with them in it, helping them through it. And so it actually brings such depth.
Yeah. Yep.
Or you know that they're like literally their whole world has fallen apart, and you're bringing loving challenge in that season of life. Again, it's not like, it's like that person loves me so much and I can feel their love and I can feel their challenge and they're with me. I'm not alone in this, because they want to help me out.
Yeah.
They want to help me navigate through this. And so it actually brings such a depth of relationship as well, such a fulfillment in your relationship with them. And so it's so important as well to dig those wells, really, of relationship with people that you're discipling, because they will remember that you were there with them, and that, you know, all of those things. But I think practically you need to constantly be pivoting on your strategy. So for me, I think it's always better if you just say things as you see them. Like, so I think for me, pre-revelation of this whole love thing, I would be having conversations with people, and it was like a bank, and I would like fill up my bank of things. I'm like, I see a pattern, I see this, I see, and it's just like, it's just like, I'm going to have a discipleship catch up with them. And then the anxiety for me is real. And it's just like, how should I get
Tackle
there?
all these things.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay, let's just do life with people, and let's just call things out as I see them.
Great.
Yep. And I'm not going to wait, and I'm not going to wait for this big, huge climax of like, this is a 3-hour conversation.
Yeah.
But literally just knowing the people that I'm discipling, knowing their context, knowing what's happening in their lives, and then pivoting on what I know. So, for instance, like recently, like I had a discipleship conversation with a couple of our young guys, and it was genuinely like something happened at an event. They said a stupid thing, and I knew it was just like arrogance and a lack of wisdom.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just need to just confront this head on. So I pulled them aside. I was like, hey, but I always ask a question, always.
Yeah.
Like I present the issue and I ask a question, even though I knew it was just going to be pretty well like black and white.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do that. These are the reasons why.
Yeah.
But it was like, this is what I heard was said. Was it said? Yes. And I could see straight away they were like, yes. And I was like, would you have said it if I was standing right there?
Wow.
No. So you know it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I just walked them through that. But then it was a fairly black and white conversation, but it was also then it's just like, I love you.
Yeah.
And I believe in you. And the reason why I'm addressing this is not because I'm angry. I'm not actually angry at all.
Yeah.
I think you said a stupid thing, but you also need to know that you are called to such a high standard.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you have to be aware that you are representing me. You are representing Jesus. You are representing Nova Church. You are representing everything that we are because of the influence that you have. And so with that influence, it becomes like it's a greater responsibility. Yeah. And so I'm calling you to that because I know that you're called to some crazy things. And so we've got to start to learn how to represent well in all of your day-to-day life, right? Yeah. So it's just like, again, like, and that was a fairly harsh conversation, but not harsh. It was just a very blunt. It was just a blunt conversation.
Yeah.
And it was like, took 10 minutes and it was fine.
Yeah.
But I think also it's like just constantly observing people, their behavior. And again, like, I think I always open with, hey, I noticed that you weren't at, I don't know, you weren't at this service that you were meant to be. Or I thought you were rostered on, and then, I noticed that you weren't. What happened there? Do you mean like just asking the conversation? Asking the question, opening the conversation, getting their context, oh yeah, I slept through my alarm.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's not like you. Why? Like, so what's happening there? Because that's
out of character.
that's out of character
Yeah.
for you. So is that the full truth?
Yeah.
Or like what's
Yeah.
actually happening there?
Yeah.
And getting them to unload. And sometimes it's like, yeah, like this is happening at home, blah, you know, and they start to say all this stuff. Or it's genuinely just like literally a laziness issue.
Yep.
And so you can speak directly to it and bring correction. But I pretty well always open with that question.
Yeah.
Get them to talk about it and then say my point of view. Like say what I see.
Yep.
And bring correction and
Yeah.
and just as I see it, and like just not making it a big deal, just grabbing people after a meeting,
Yep.
sending a voice memo.
Yes. Yep.
I like do a lot through voice memos now.
Yep.
Sam's it's my podcast time. Like I'm
She is
cleaning and I'm
seriously
constantly
always
listening.
voice memoing. It's wild.
Because I just need to know like what's happening in people's lives, but also like just speaking like straight away. I'm just like, would I prefer to have this conversation in real life? Yes. Am I opposed to it? No. But I know right now you've said this in a voice memo. I can literally just straight away bring the challenge, bring you truth,
Yep.
and follow you up. And I think if we can just like live in a lifestyle of relationship and fun and all of those things, but also hearing the context and hearing dysfunctional thinking or dysfunctional behavior and just immediately just being like, this is just like our life. And so I can like literally straight away be like, oh, that's unusual. Oh, Jordan, that's dysfunctional. I don't think that's right.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not quite right. And so I think you probably need to rethink this or this is a pattern. Like you've spoken about this and every time I tell you to do something you don't want to do or something, you avoid me.
Yep.
And so that is actually really dysfunctional. And because I can see this limiting you in your fathering one day, in your business one day, whatever it is, in your marriage, whatever, I'm not concerned. I'm not offended with you, but I can see that this is a dysfunctional thing. And so I think you need to address it for your future calling, for you to be a greater leader, for blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? And just like constantly just giving people that feedback and not making it such a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, because I think that has been my trap in the past, has been like, I'm just keeping a bank.
Yes.
And then I'm just so anxious about having like a bad catch up with you instead of this just being the tone of our relationship.
Yeah.
If you think about like a weed growing, it's easier to pull it out the fresher it is.
That's
So
right.
it's like if it's just germinated, it's easy. You just whoop, but the longer it's been there, the deeper the roots, the harder it gets. So when we delay, it just gets harder and harder to get this thing. It gets harder and harder to pull it out. It becomes this event.
Yeah.
But discipleship isn't an event; it's a lifestyle.
Exactly
so
right.
we want to just be in that rhythm, just regularly of doing those things. And then I think when you're on the receiving end of it, I know we've spoken a lot about the giving of the correction, but when you're on the receiving end, I think how you interpret correction is so important.
Yes. Yep.
So if you can learn to receive correction when it's godly, when it's healthy, when it's in a good environment, all of that, goes without saying. We're not talking here about abusive environments, or we're not talking about toxic environments or unhealthy leaders. But if you're in a healthy church, healthy environment, under healthy leadership, and you can learn to receive correction as love, there's no limit to how far you can grow.
Exactly right.
But if you interpret correction as rejection and you pull away from the people who are trying to love you and help you, it's going to have an adverse effect on your growth and on your future. And what's going to happen is someone's going to correct you. Someone's going to speak in. Someone's going to give feedback. And if every time that happens, you pull back and isolate because you see correction as rejection, you're going to stop growing.
Yeah.
You are going to miss who you could become in the Lord. You're going to miss becoming more like Jesus. You're going to miss becoming all that God's called you to be because you interpreted the correction incorrectly.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you interpret correction as love and you tell yourself, I know this doesn't feel good. I know it feels like they don't believe in me because they're correcting something right now. But if a narrative in your mind can be no, they're correcting me because they love me.
Yeah.
They're correcting me because they're shepherding me.
Yeah.
They're correcting me because they're protecting me. They're pulling me off the train track. They're getting my hand off the stove.
Yeah.
If that's the narrative in your mind, you're just going to grow.
Yeah,
You're just going
yeah.
to keep growing. You're just
Yeah.
going to accelerate and be able to take off.
Yeah.
And the people that we've walked with the closest and the longest who are doing the best, that's the story.
Yep.
Is there
Yep.
tensions? Yep. Does a correction awkward? Yep. Does it feel sometimes like, oh man, I just would rather, I'd rather they didn't say that and it's different. Yeah, but they love me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to be around people pleasers. I want to be around
Yep.
people leaders. I want to be around
Yep.
people who love me enough to lead me somewhere.
Yeah, so good.
I want them to love me enough to lead me
Yeah.
to that ideal future that God has for me. And I
Yeah.
think ultimately that's the heart of a courageous conversation.
Yeah, so good. I think about that quote from Pastor Leah over at Heart of God where she says, if I can feel your affection, I can take your correction.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, when we're talking about these courageous conversations, more so from the place of when you're giving them and as the leader in that dynamic, it is so important to have that trust, that compassion towards them, that relationship built.
Yes.
And I think it's, so important as well, like you were saying,
Yep.
P.S., even just then, how you receive those conversations.
Yep.
We could do a whole episode on that as well.
Yes,
Because
yeah,
that is like the whole other side of it as well, is like having a heart that can receive a courageous conversation.
Yep.
But I guess like as we sort of come around the bend today, tail and bend, come around the bend.
It's a good
That is
town.
a random location
It's
in
a good
South
town.
Australia for all of our international viewers. But as we come near the end of the episode, I'd love to ask, obviously, we'll come to our final question in just a moment, talking about where God is discipling your heart at the moment. But I'd love to kind of wrap this conversation up with the thought of like, how do you know that the courageous conversation has gone well?
I think it's actually very simple.
Yeah.
The behavior's changed.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
If a conversation achieved what it was meant to in God, if the seed was fruitful and sprouted, there'll be a noticeable shift and a noticeable change.
Yes.
And it will last.
Yeah.
People can adjust. You know, someone says something to me, so I change my behavior for a day. That's not transformation. Transformation is when there is a new posture.
Yep.
There's a new lifestyle. There's a new approach. There's a deep and long-lasting transformation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going for.
Yes.
In these conversations.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yep.
And that's even why we entitled today Courageous Conversations That Transform the Heart.
Yes, it's
Because we could have
transformative.
easily called it that change the heart, that open the heart.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, true discipleship actually transforms people's lives.
It does. Yep.
And so that's really important. So I guess final question today, guys. Since our last time filming, where has God been discipling your heart?
Very good question. I think for me, we're in a season at the moment in church life that's really just requiring a lot of faith. And I think we're in a time where we could comfortably settle and go, this is kind of where we're at and what's happening. But what I feel the Lord just pressing on my heart is not to settle, but just to be believing Him for more and
Yeah.
to stay in that posture of faith.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there's been different seasons in my own life where I've been forced to go into faith
Yep.
because the circumstance has demanded it.
Yeah.
Now I feel in a time where God is leading me to put myself in a position
Wow.
where I need to have more
Yeah.
faith.
Yep.
And that's that self-leadership,
Yep.
that to go, no, Lord, I'm not going to step into comfort. I'm not going to
Yep.
step into familiarity.
Yeah.
I'm going to position myself in areas of faith
Yep.
to keep seeing you do more.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother thing. It's one
Yep.
thing to need it by default. It's
Yep.
another thing to make that as a decision and to
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
I want to step into that. So that's
Yep.
an area for me at the moment.
Well, that's awesome. What
How
about
about
you,
you?
Pastor Hannah?
I think for me, it's probably, obedience and faith. Like, and not allowing fear to make my decisions in like the sense of, I think sometimes my flesh can be like, is this wise of my time or my finance?
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be, but not allowing fear, but not allowing obedience, like the law of the Bible,
Yes.
to stay in faith in what He says, like that He is our provider, that you will sow what you will reap what you sow.
Yes.
So I've
Yep.
asked you to sow here, and I know you don't know how that makes sense, but just
Yeah.
know that you will reap.
Yeah.
what you're sowing, and it might not even be right here where you're sowing right now. So don't allow the fear of disappointment to get into your brain. Just be obedient with what I've asked you to do, and just have faith that my word is true, and that, and it's like just in all different areas, just with time and like, finance and mothering and lots of different areas of just like stay in faith and be obedient to my voice, and know that I'm good. I'm a good one to rely on.
Very
and just trusting him with that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great episode, hey?
Wonderful.
Did you guys enjoy that?
I did.
Yes.
It's kind of your bread and butter a little bit, you two. Like, you guys are so good at these courageous conversations. So
Much practice,
She's
Jordan.
the expert.
It's
much
awesome.
practice.
It's so cool to hear from you guys. It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. How good was that transition, by the way? Just
Good
bang,
swivel.
There we go. Good swivel on a non-swivel chair, by the way, I might add.
Good. That's good.
But hey, what a great episode we just had. Thank you so much for joining us on the Strong Disciples podcast. Like always, you can like, subscribe, leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear where you'd love us to go with this as well, like any themes or ideas that you've got. We would love to hear from you. But what a great day. It's been awesome. And we will see you again soon. See you at episode 8. Episode 8 coming up. It's going to be good. We'll see you then. Catch ya.